everybody back. We have some things on sale from the Historical Society and the Commission, so if you want to start your Christmas shopping early. We've got some of our older ornaments on sale. We've got a little scratch and dent sale. And then we have our newest ornament, which is the County Street School. How's that for being benign about what name to call it? So that's our newest ornament. So if you haven't already gotten one of those, they're for sale. And then we have some other Attleboro memorabilia and books for sale. So we have the handheld microphone, so we don't have to yell over.
Just, flip that little on switch.
Little on switch. Here we go.
There you go.
Are we on? All right. So if you're afraid of the microphone, I guess you don't have to use it.
Loud enough.
You got to use your best teacher voice.
I have a remote control back here that I can use to make it loud.
How's that? How's our volume?
Oh, good.
Good? All right.
Is that better?
We're going to start with a ringer, and then we'll open it up. And please, this is Attleboro memorabilia, but we call it show and tell. We want to hear, a lot of people have questions about the things that they brought. They want to hear what you have to add. Last year, I felt like we solved a couple of mysteries. We had that picture from,
Linda Jamarino.
Slater.
Yeah, Slater
down
Mill.
at Slater Mill.
Yeah.
And so it's for us to kind of crowdsource and try and help one another find out some more information about the things we have and to share information that we have with everybody. So I'm going to have Marion go first, and then we'll kind of see how it rolls from there.
Okay, thank you, Rachel. And I'm Marion Wrightington, and one thing I wanted to mention to everybody that I wish that everybody that does come up to speak, you should give your name before you begin, because I think sometimes we don't all know each other.
Okay.
So that would be great. I'll go back here. Okay, so when I knew this was going to be show and tell, I wasn't sure what I was going to talk about, but then I thought, one of the questions that I get all the time is what's the difference between the Historical Commission and the Historical Society, Historic Preservation Society. So I thought, well, okay, I'll talk about the Historical Commission. You all know what the society is because you're all here. You all either pay your dues and come, or you come as part of the public to all of these wonderful Attleboro-related events that they have. And you know that they're all fighting to save the Academy too. But the Historical Commission is actually part of the government. And we have 7 members and 7...
Get it, turn it on.
Maybe, I think it's on, but is it not?
Okay, so anyway, the Attleboro Historical Commission is part of our city's government. And we're allowed to have 7 members and 7 alternate members, and that's all we can have. And those are appointed by the mayor. In 1968, Elizabeth Phillips, a lot of you remember Elizabeth Phillips, she convinced Mayor Tom Piggott that Attleboro needed to have a commission so that we could take care of preserving our historical assets. And she won, and he started a commission, and he put her on as chairman. In 1976, I joined, so I've been a member of the commission for 43 years, so I guess I'm able to tell you the history. One of the things the commission is supposed to do is to put ordinances on the books, have it go through city council and get ordinances on the books that will help preserve our assets. Another thing is we do all kinds of projects. Oh boy.
There you go.
One of the projects that we did from the very beginning was a reprint of Daggett's history. And this is available tonight for sale over there on that table. They're $10 a piece. Another thing that we did as a project was we have these we put up historic site signs all over the city at all of our historic sites. And then we published this little booklet to go with it, which tells all about all of the historical sites. And these are free over there on the table tonight. If you'd all like to take one, take it home to the grandkids, let them go out and find the historical sites. Maybe they'll learn something or whatever. But that was another project that we did. Then we published another history of Attleboro. People have called me and said, there's no histories of Attleboro. And I'm like, yeah, there is. This one picked up where Daggett left off. That's why it's called Attleboro 1894, and then to Attleboro in 1978. And that was when it was published in 1978. So it goes from the first history of Attleboro to this is the second one. And that was written by Paul Tedesco. That was a huge project for the commission. We also did a burial ground book. We don't have those for sale. We sold out of those. But they are available in the local history room on the second floor of the library. we actually inventoried all of the grave sites in the city prior to 1830, and they're all in that booklet, if you want to look at that for anything. Around 1985, we got a grant for 2 historic preservation consultants, and Rachel, you can put that picture up now. Oh, wait a minute, the first one. I forgot to talk about the first one. Do the first one. This is some of the first members of the commission. This is Sandy Martin. Well,
A little closer if I, how's that?
I'm going to be seasick in a minute.
All right, sorry.
Sandy Martin, Larry Fitton, Ruth Nerney, Sue Blaze, some lady with brown hair. I didn't know all of them. Lisa Nelson, Walter Stitt, Henry Pelletier, Shirley Schlockhauser, is that how you say it?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah.
Nolia Bellinger, Harold Barbarian, and I don't know who this guy was. I don't remember. They were, those two were a couple of, they came and went. So anyway, but.
That's a great picture.
So that was one of the first pictures of the commission. So anyway, okay, where was I? So then we got a grant, and we wanted to hire 2 historic preservation consultants, and that's this picture. And again, this is Bill Nerney, Larry Fitton, Ruth Nerney, Harold Barbarian, the lady with the brown hair, and this is Minxie and Monique, and those were the 2 historic preservation consultants that we hired to do that survey of the entire city. And they worked for a year, and at the end of the year, they gave us 603 files of the different historical assets that they thought we had. Then another project that we did was Mr. Studley had written a history, and after he died, Mr. Studley was a superintendent of schools here for years. After he died, his family gave all of his notes for his book on the history of Attleboro to the commission, and we published that, and that's also available over there tonight for $10. In 1999 was when the Academy was first in trouble, and we didn't know what was going to happen to it, and so the commission was fighting to save it, and we decided we needed more people because we were only allowed so many people. So that was when we started the Attleboro Historic Preservation Society, and it was to help with that cause. And they've been helping ever since, trying anyway. It's a hard battle. We also tried to find new uses for old buildings, if old buildings are going to be torn down or whatever, that type of thing. And we also started a Historic Preservation Award program for the city residents who preserve any part of Attleboro's history. And then we recognize them, and we do it in hopes of inspiring other people to do something to preserve the history. We've been doing it for 20 years now, every year. Then we requested from the city council and fought for a demolition delay ordinance. A demolition delay ordinance is one that says if you have a historic building on your property and you want to tear it down, you apply for the building permit, and then the historical commission has 90 days to try and talk you out of it, if that's at all possible. Or, just get you to change your mind one way or another, maybe by having it moved, or something like that, or at least have us go in and see if there's any architectural artifacts that might be worthy of saving, or just to go in and take pictures so that we can have it documented. At the end of 90 days, you can still tear it down because it's your building, but at least we got that 90-day ordinance. It took us 3 years to get that through city council. Another project we did was the Larry Fitton Wall. The Larry Fitton Wall is in the old post office, now known as the Shang Building. And if none of you have seen it, you should go in and look at it. Whenever the Registry of Deeds is open, you can go in there, and it's to the right-hand side on the Union Street end of the building. And Ted Sharon had done this portrait of Larry Fitton. And he told me one day that if I could get the uniform to put on display with the portrait, he would donate the portrait to the city. So I was on it. And I finally found the uniform, and not only did I get the uniform, but I got the bell. And then we had, and so Ted donated the portrait. The portrait's about 4 feet by 6 feet. It is huge. And so this hangs up at the top, and then this is a cabinet. I worked with the Attleboro High School carpentry class to build these shadow boxes to put the items in. And I even got the bell. The bell is right here on a little shelf inside the cabinet. This is a plaque telling everything about it. This says, "Hear ye, hear ye, hear ye." And then this cabinet here, which is another one they built, is all different speeches and other pictures of Larry through his lifetime. But it really was one of our best projects, I thought. So we work with the Attleboro Arts Museum, the Attleboro High School, not only the carpentry class when we did that, but also the metal fab. Rachel, you have a picture of the sign down at the Dodge Island Cemetery. A Boy Scout did that for his Eagle project, and he actually worked with a local blacksmith to do that. But we have had kids work with the metal fab at the high school. They're responsible for those railings that are on the front of the old post office. They, wanted all of our input on them and everything. And this is more Boy Scouts doing a cleanup of a cemetery. We oversee 6 family burial grounds in Attleboro and try to see that they get taken care of in some way or another. But we also work with the Industrial Museum and contractors. I have contractors call me a lot with questions. We work with the Building Inspection Department and, of course, the Historic Preservation Society. So we also have postcards for sale tonight. One is the library, one is the Wolfenden Fountain at Capron Park, the DAR House, and the Arches. And these are not the postcards. You've got the postcard picture. But these are the pictures that were down at the old Hearth and Kettle in South Attleboro.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
You don't? Maybe I didn't. Oh, I put it over on the table.
Okay.
No wonder I can't find it. These were the paintings that were down at the Hearth and Kettle. And when the Hearth and Kettle was going to be demolished, we wrote to corporate and said, what's going to happen with those paintings? And so they said that we could, Carlton?
You want me to bring?
No, see the little thing behind them on the table?
Yeah.
That's all of them right there. That's what I was going
Want me to
to
bring it
put. You can if you want to. So I wrote to corporate and they said that if I wanted them, I could go down and get them. So my husband and I went down with crowbars and everything else.
Oh, my goodness.
And they were actually glued to the wall. They weren't framed. They were glued to the wall with moldings around them. So they had to be peeled off. So we got it going at the top, all 4 hands, and we just started rolling them down, and we got them all off. And then Mayor Dumas had them all framed very nicely, and now they all hang at City Hall. They're gorgeous. They really were. When Hearth and Kettle built that building, they hired a gallery in Plymouth to do some local decor for them. And they called me and asked me what I thought they should use, and so I gave them a bunch of old postcards to pick from, and that's what they used. So that was just another project. We have all kinds of crazy projects. But anyway, and then the postcards, did he just give you that? Yeah, there's the postcards. This is Sturdy Hospital. These are all 50 cents a piece. Sturdy Hospital, overhead view. This is the Capron Park Casino or the Park and Forestry Department right out on County Street. And this is the Academy, and this is the Shang Building, better known as the Post Office. And so that was another one of our projects. So that's what the Historical Commission does. And I also have a whole list of all the other projects that we've done from 1969 through now. And I'll put it up here on the table if you want to see that. And then this is a list of how well Attleboro was doing. When I said new uses for old buildings, you wouldn't believe, until you stop and think about it, how great a job we have done. This building right here is this museum now, and it was actually a refinery in the beginning. And the fire station is now the senior center. And the armory is now the kids' recreation center. And all of those old buildings are keeping the charming character of our city, but they're having a new function and they're being used very well all the time. But there's a whole list of them here, so if you want to look at that, you can. Okay? So I'm not going to take any questions now because I've talked too long and I want everybody else to have a chance to talk. So if anybody's got any questions afterwards, you'll find me. The lady with the brown hair was me. You did get that, didn't you?
Yes.
I'm just gonna put it up one more time.
Lady with the brown hair.
When I started on the commission, it was all old people, and then me. It really was, because Henry Pelletier, Charlie Haywood, all those
This
old
is the
guys.
Pelletier Gallery.
And Henry Pelletier, yeah. And so, I just sat around and listened to them talk because there was nothing official about their meetings. None of this gavel and stuff like that. They just sat around the table and reminisced. And I sat there and listened. And that's how I learned my Attleboro history. But they're all gone now, all of them.
Yes.
No, I had to follow this.
Was that the sketch?
John Atkinson. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. This is a postcard that I've got in my collection showing the Memorial City Hall. We don't know who commissioned it. It was done by Killiam and Hopkins Architects, Park Street, Boston, who are long gone out of business. We don't know who in Attleboro paid to have it done, have the drawings done. We don't know much of anything about it. We can't find anything at City Hall. Can't find out anything about from the architectural firm. But if you notice, there's the library right there. So it had to be after 1907? Nine?
Yeah, seven, yeah.
And that's basically the parking lot at the Attleboro Library.
Yeah.
So that's what it was going to be. But who knows what happened to it or where the idea came from. Somebody from the city had to have done something as far as commissioning the architects to do drawings, but we can't find anything. Marion's been looking through things for a year since last show and tell, and so have I, and we're coming up against a brick wall. So if anybody's got an idea, we're open to suggestions. And if you look really close, there's a woman walking by here with a full-length outfit on. So we're thinking 1910, 1912,
It was
somewhere in
before we were
there.
a city then, right?
Hmm?
It was when we were a town.
We were
Well, it
down,
says-
we
it
were
says
really.
City Hall.
1914.
It's called Memorial City Hall of Attleboro. What is that, North Main Street? I can't read it from here.
Site?
North Main Street site.
Yeah.
Okay, so that was.
Unfortunately, we can't count the stars on the flag because it's not that clear, but
But it would have to be 1914 at least
Right.
to say city.
But it was just a proposed memorial, but it was never did.
Yeah.
no, nothing ever came of it, but
Right.
somebody from Attleboro had to call up the architects and say, hey, we need a new city hall, here's a site,
Yeah.
what can you do for
Yeah,
us?
they didn't just give it away.
I mean, they just don't do it off the top of their heads.
That's amazing.
So that's an ongoing, who knows? And Rachel, the next one,
Slacking.
this is somewhere between 1933 and 1941. And these are the Blue Eagles football team. They were not a city-sponsored team. They were a bunch of guys that got together that liked to play football. My dad is number 38 in the front row, and that's where he lost his 2 front teeth. And there's a file in the upstairs at the library that Rachel and I looked at. There were no photos in it, but there were, at least a half a dozen, 8 or 10 newspaper clippings, and believe it or not, there was great dissension among the city councilors. Who'd have thought? Regarding using Haywood Field for their games and their practices. Because there were 2 or 3 city-sponsored teams at the time, plus the Blue Eagles. And trying to fit everybody in schedule-wise, some of the city councilors thought that the Blue Eagles should get the short end of things, and the city-sponsored team should be, given preference. But there's no names on the pictures, so I only know one person in it. If
What's
you
your
can,
dad's name?
What's your dad's name?
Al Atkinson.
Do you know what the building was?
But, they're obviously out of high school. They're past high school, and he graduated in '33. They're obviously before World War I when he enlisted in 1941. So we got a 7-year span there somewhere.
Did you find the building?
Nope, not a clue on the building. There's nothing like that up at Haywood Field. And I don't know where else they practiced.
Who would they have played against?
Evidently, they played against the city teams and teams from the surrounding areas. North Attleboro had a couple of teams. I think even Plainville had a team at one time.
The Jewelry City Football Club. They're eager to meet them at any time. I don't know who the jewelry is.
But Rachel came up with a couple of jerseys. So they were, you know, a group to be reckoned with, evidently.
Were they semi-pro? Did you, were
It was
they?
like, it was almost semi-pro,
You
yeah.
know, because I know there were teams around at one time that were semi-pro.
Attleboro had a baseball team that was
Exactly.
real high-end semi-pro. Guess they had a couple of football teams too.
Yeah.
Rachel's gonna go over a little bit more of it, but if you notice anybody or recognize anybody in the picture, give us a holler. And that's it. Next.
I'm just gonna segue.
Segue.
When John started asking about the Blue Eagles, and Marion organizing the commission, Don Ludwig, who was a manager of the team, his widow and daughter had donated his manager's uniform, so this is a lot of the light. This is one of his uniforms. Here's their
There's the
little
eagle.
blue eagle
Yeah.
on the back.
What's the
And
word
that's-
combines?
Isn't that a
That's,
farm machine?
Yeah.
yeah,
I
yeah.
don't know that part. And then a little bit jazzier one.
Yeah.
Blake,
Wow.
the gold, and
Nice.
eagle looks a little more sinister on this one. So I have some of those articles that John was talking about, but none of them have dates on them. And I have not spent any time looking back through any of the old chronicles, but it does mention a number of the players in here. And Al, his dad, was mentioned, and I just mixed up all the articles and can't find any of the names quickly enough. So several, if you think maybe you have some relatives that may have played, but there's some of the controversial politics on the decisions over allowing them to use Hayward Field for their benefit. Anybody got any other Blue Eagle stories? Anybody know any other information about the Blue Eagles? We'll put this up, and if you take a gander, maybe it'll be someone you recognize, a little up close, a little hard to
Maybe we
make
have
out.
some old photos here of them too. I'll have to, I don't
That's a
recollect
copy.
seeing any, but I'll look into it.
So we'll put these up on the table, and you can take a look at those later and see if there's anybody that you recognize and help us solve some of our little history mysteries. Hetty, you ready to go? You want to hold on a few minutes, or? All right, Betty's going to go, and,
I'm just gonna, let's see, it's here, but I'm not ready to talk about
all right,
them
you
yet.
tell me when, and I'll Danny.
Okay, it's theater time. Are you ready to go to the theater? How about the Bates Opera House?
Oh, yeah.
Right? Does Bates sound familiar to you?
Yeah.
Okay.
My grandson is a Bates.
The Bates Theater, previously known as the Bates Opera House, is one of our landmarks here in Attleboro. And if you were driving or walking on North Main Street and Park Street, right at it's sort of like the curve, there's a sign there that says landmark Bates Opera House. It was called the Bates Opera House when Howard Bates had the building built for the Attleboro Village because he wanted community spirit and shows and whatever. So again, it was called the Opera House. And it was, excuse me where I put on my readers here, he was a very civic-minded gentleman, Howard Bates, and it was located right as if you were coming off North Main and coming onto Park Street. It was like that curve area, and you'd see the sign there if you went there today. Now, it became a place for community shows and whatever. My mother told me at one time that before, right after, I think, well, let me backtrack a little. The theater went into two different phases. There was a fire in 1912, a big fire, and the
Here's what it
theater
looked like.
was actually, and that was
That's what it looked like prior.
prior. And then
There's
the
a couple of
fire,
priors, it's 3-story.
right, it was a 3-story building. And after the fire, it was reconstructed, and there was a 4th floor added to the building. This was a picture of it after the fire. You can see the sign, Bates. And if those of you remember, how many of you ever went to the movies there, at the Bates Theater? Now in Attleboro, we had the Bates Theater, we had the Union Theater. The Union Theater still is visible today, and owned by the Friedman family, and they actually, I believe it's up for sale now because they don't have a use for it anymore, which is too bad. But getting back to the Bates Theater, those of us who went to the movies there, you went after the reconstruction. And you probably would remember, I think there's another one showing this was the sign here, the Bates Theater. And I remember,
The marquee is right below that, too.
yes, right below it. And you would hear, and of course, people would say, oh, you know, what was showing and whatever. And however, before the fire, there was a jazz musician, as my mother said. His name was Al Jolson. And some of you maybe remember the name. But Mr. Jolson was a performer and a jazz musician, came out of California and everywhere and performed. Attleboro actually had a lot of minstrel shows. People would go, especially during the Depression and afterwards. So that's when the theater then, after the fire, became the theater. And it says here that there were 2 phases after the fire of 1912. And the second was the modernization of the theater that we know perhaps as the movie theater. The fire practically gutted the entire building, and the renovation provided a 4th floor, because if you can see here, just three floors. And then there was a 4th floor, and on the 4th floor, I was surprised when Marion handed me this. It was a cafe, a restaurant, and it was called the Bates Block Cafe. And they had breakfast from 7 until 9, dinner 11:30 until 2, and then of course dinner was what we call lunch, and then supper, and supper was 5:30 until 8. Sundays they had breakfast 8 until 10 and dinner 12:30. But what is just incredible as I looked over the menu, I'm just going to, just a few things. If you wanted oysters, you could get a half a dozen oysters for 20 cents. If you wanted a cocktail, 25 cents. Soups, chicken soup with rice. I made that today. And 15 cents for chicken soup with rice. But eggs, if you wanted a fried egg or a boiled egg, 25 cents. If it was dropped on toast, it was 30 cents. And eggs with ham, 40 cents. Doesn't sound like Warren's done, does it? And then, amazing, this is sirloin steak for 2, $1.50. Sirloin steak for 1 was only 60 cents. Various sandwiches and whatever. Most sandwiches were around 15 cents to 20 cents. And vegetables, a big potato, 5 cents. And of course rolls and butter and all of that. And then desserts, apple pie, 10 cents. Custard pie, 10 cents. Vanilla ice cream, 10 cents. I wonder if it was Bliss's. And tea and coffee, 5 cents. So just amazing, just to hear those prices.
What was the year on that? Was it the year they had that?
Well, it was after the fire, so it was, you know, in probably after 1912, during the Depression or whatever. But anyway, the Bates Block Cafe. And then the second phase, or the modernization of the Bates Opera House, became in 1951. And that was when they had the 4th floor, or they had that's when the date for the cafe was in 1951. And the next phase was when we know it as the theater, or the Bates Movie Theater. I especially just note that a few years back, the Attleboro Historic Society's one of our programs, we met with Mr. Woodward from Cooper's store.
Oh, yeah.
And he took us, he had a key, the magic key, and took us upstairs and to a magic door. He unlocked the door and pulled down a ladder, and those of us who were able to climb the ladder and could overlook, as you look through the floor, and then you had the air conditioner units and everything up there on the roof, but you could see the Bates stage, the theater stage, and the drapes, the curtains, the closing curtains for the movie theater and so forth was still there. It was especially memorable to me because a woman that ran the Attleboro Dance Studio, Janet White Saley Frazier, had all her dance recitals there. And when I was a member of the dance studio, I had danced on the Bates Theater. And to look out there and to see it, it still exists. I mean, we can't go up there anymore, but Rachel, you have some pictures of it that afterwards you can come up and see some of them. But it's just memorable. The other memory that I had, a little sidebar of the Bates Theater, was just after the war, my mother moved to Attleboro, and her sister was a ticket taker from the Bates Theater. And oftentimes I would go visit with my aunt, and she would say, "Would you like to come to the movies today?" So we went up these beautiful marble stairs, brass railings, and you went upstairs to the ticket booth. And oh, I thought that was special. I was sitting in that booth and people would come in and she'd use her little machine and out would pop the ticket. And a Mr. McAvoy was running, he was the manager of the movie theater, the Bates Theater as well as the Union Theater. But the head usher at the Bates Theater was a gentleman by the name of Roxy Peachy. I don't know if that name sounds familiar to any of you. And then later on, down the years, Roxy Peachy bought the Union Theater, and he was responsible for running that for many years. And it was after him, I believe, that the Friedman family bought the Union Theater. But it was just such, I mean, those of us who've been here now, it was the place to be. If you wanted to go to the movies, that was the place to go. Now, Marion had found several things. I don't know if some of you remember, if you went into the theater, into the movies, sometimes the feature film, of course, I remember right after the war, it was always, the first part was the news. Yes. The news came on. And then following the news was a preview of what was going to be featured the next showing. But if you had gone, and they usually had 2 showings, so if you went into the theater and the featured film was already started or whatever, there was this was a sign that was put on, but it says, "Those not seeing the entire performance may remain for the next." So you weren't charged, you didn't have to leave, but you could see the whole movie in this way.
They put it right in front of the projector lens.
Right in front of
And it'll show on the
it.
screen.
So you knew that.
It stayed forever. It was in the middle.
But that was even fun because if you,
Yeah, there you go.
Oh, good.
That's
A
it.
little bend in it, so.
right. And actually, sometimes,
Like,
Yeah, so
It's
it's
brass.
been, yeah, it's been stamped out.
if you really liked the movie, then you would sit through each
Yes.
episode, right? And you didn't have to pay.
Nothing else to do.
And this is amazing that Marion found, and I don't know if you can show this, but this was a block, actually for seating. Oh yeah, well it does. But it shows, it's something that would be printed, it would have to be put on an ink block or something, and it would show the seating and the number of the seats in the theater, so that it was all in, sort of like in a semicircle.
Yeah.
But,
This is the stage here. This is the first floor. And then
Right.
this is the balcony.
right.
And each one of these is little teeny-weeny numbers. My husband is a toolmaker, and he couldn't understand how they could have produced this piece of work in this day and age. And up here, it just says Bates Opera House.
Wow.
But I was comparing it to now, if you want to go to the Showcase Theater, you can go online, you can get your tickets, and you'll know where you're going to be seated. So, I mean, here was the beginning, right here. I mean, that's the beginning of something saying, okay, which seat do you want? And of course, if you went to a show, like the recitals or a special show, there was always somebody that would usher you to your seat, or your ticket would designate where you were sitting. So there was lots of fun things about the Bates Theater. Today, following the closing of the theater, when commercialism of Park Street took over, the My Ladies store was there, and E.I. Perry's, which was a men's store, and then London's had, after My Ladies, I think London's came in, and they had, it wasn't the Home Goods, but it was another department of London store. So that all became there, and of course, you didn't have to go in and go up any stairs or anything. It was street level. And
Cooper's.
But Cooper's was around the corner. But
It was on that
on
same-
Park Street, you had My Ladies, and then E.I. Perry's, and then H.K. Richardson Insurance was up on the second floor to the right. And also Woolworth's. Was it
What was the
Woolworth's?
jewelry store right next to the,
Pearson's. Pearson's jewelry store, yes, yeah. So the changes in technology
on the
taken over, right? And there we are.
Not so
So,
good.
but again, fond memories. I'm sure if you've lived here in Attleboro, you know all the changes that have taken place.
Was there a theater on Bank Street too?
yes.
Yes, that was
Columbia?
called Community, I
No,
believe.
Columbia.
Columbia, yes, thank you. Yeah, that was the first.
Never hear anything about that.
I got a postcard.
No, but it was on Bank Street, yes.
I just graduated from the Bates Theater in 1940.
You what?
HS.
And they have the ceremony?
Yes, that was, they determined that the class was too large for Attleboro High School. So we were in
At the Bates Theater, right? Yes, it served many purposes
Yeah,
besides
that was
dances and shows and whatever.
About how many people were in that class?
There were also apartments and businesses
But they still
upstairs.
have-
Yes, there are.
My
Even
dentist
to
was
this
up there.
today.
Since then.
There are still offices up there.
For you, fine.
Dr. Million was up there.
Yeah.
I'm gonna jump in again. So earlier this year, when we were preparing for Inside Uptown, we knew that the building really wasn't suited inside for us, but the new owner allowed us to go inside and take some photographs inside there. And so some of these are a little hard to read. Let's swap this on its side again. I need to be down a little bit lower.
These are the theater.
So this is inside the Bates Theater, and again, it's a little hard to read, but you would come up the stairs here, and you can just see a doorway here. This would bring you up to the upper part of the balcony. But then the little ladder Betty was talking about, we got to go on, and it was a little scary.
Yes, it was.
There isn't much left inside of there anymore, and so it was a little precarious. This one, again, this is actually, this is behind the stage, so if you were looking at the stage, there's no more curtains, there's no more stage, and you can see everything behind it. This is kind of like a little catwalk that looked like it was probably part of the staging and where they would do some of the theatrical, I'm not a theater person, so where you would put staging and, I don't know, I think they had Peter Pan fly or something like that. But the one thing that we did see was along where the seats were, there was just one section where there was still some paintings down the exterior wall. And so they're pretty degraded. This one was in the best shape. And so we tried to get as close up as we could to document them. So you can just see that there's some, I don't know what they are, instruments, bells at the top. There's a close-up of some of the detail of the painting. There really isn't anything left. The floors are gone, the chairs are gone. So prior to the current owner buying it, it had all been stripped out. I think maybe in a thought that that space could be used for something different, so maybe try to envision it that way. John was just mentioning, and when you look back, it's always been used for retail on the first floor. It always had shops. It always had office space on the second floor and a few apartments. That was always part of the design, and that's still how it's used today.
There are still offices.
And then maybe a little flashback
Cooper's.
for some of you. Here's one of the Cooper signs, and then here's inside of it. I think they were from the 1980s or early 90s. I can't remember the date on them any longer. And when did they close? Not that long ago.
No.
2004,
Right.
5. They finally closed up shop there.
I worked there.
You did? Oh, you did?
Really?
You remember when they closed? No?
But Edie was there,
Yeah.
the woman, the short woman that worked.
Oh, yeah.
Nobody remembers. She was there for over 20 years. She was in the drugstore for 20 years, and then as soon as they took out that fountain, she went up and she worked for Ralph and Noe up there.
But it was the place to go to get your newspapers and magazines and whatever.
Comic books.
Comic books, yep.
Periodicals,
Yes.
topographical maps.
Cigars, pipe tobacco,
Oh, yes, yep.
pipes.
Because it was,
And if you were a newspaper carrier, you came in the back door down the alley. Got your
Oh,
papers
yeah,
and,
right.
Yeah, you could get in and out with no one seeing you.
yeah. Get your papers and go.
Those are great though, Rachel,
Eddie,
thank you.
You want to bring up your, I'll put these up front and then people can look at them a little closer. We have them up in the display in the front window. They allowed us to have a display during the tour,
Next to the,
but not everybody got across the street, so we'll put these up so people.
who owns the Bates building now?
I have a feeling.
It's gone through different phases. The last person that owned it was Cal Archard.
Yeah.
He was actually owned, London, when London's was in there as well. H.K. Richardson owned it at one time. I don't know who owns it now.
It's Mr. Patel. Patel is the last name
Patel
of the
was the
owner.
last.
Yeah.
Because
I mean, it's
Edith
neat.
owned it at one time.
Who owned it? Sorry?
Edith.
Bill, not Bill. Pete Peters owned it,
Pete
yes,
owned it
you're
for a
right.
while.
Peters
Yep.
did?
Yep.
Peter Rotmer owned it for a
Yeah,
while.
yeah.
Nick and Pete.
Okay, take it away.
Okay, I'm here for answers. This painting
Maybe if
belonged
you
to
put
my...
it up top on the podium would be better
Oh,
for people could
put
see.
it up there, Al.
Yeah.
I'm Hetty Dias, and this is my son, Al Coley. And this was in our cellar, for a long time. It doesn't belong to my family, it belongs to my uncle's family. He was Evans Gilmore Jr., and he was born in Attleboro, died in Attleboro, worked at TI for years and years and years. He either went by the name Winthrop, which was his middle name, or Evans. And so, anyway, this was in his family. He inherited it. From who, I have no idea. When I was about 8 or 9 years old, it was a big thing because this was exhibited up in the First Federal Bank building. They used to have displays, and that was in the window. I never liked it because I think it was drab. It was in our cellar, like I said. It was down there, covered with dust. I cleaned a lot of it off, but I didn't dare to be too aggressive. And somebody put something on it too. But anyway, it is autographed, and it's A.C. Gilmore. And I have no idea who A.C. Gilmore is. I don't know if it's worth anything. If it's worth $1 million, that's great, But my cousin isn't interested in it at all. I don't know whether his other grandchildren would be interested or not, but before I throw it in the trash.
How about Gilmore Insurance in North Attleboro? Have you watched that family?
I don't think that they're related, but I could take it up there.
Yes. Yeah.
Now, was your
Have you
uncle's
Googled
family
that name?
Gilmore as well?
Yeah,
And so it's signed Gilmore, but it's not him, so someone
It's
in
not
his
him.
family?
and I looked up his descendants, his ancestors. His father was Evans, his grandfather was William, and they lived on Perrin Street. And if you go down Dean Street to the very end, if you kept going, you'd run into the house.
Oh,
And I think that was the house that, well, this William H. Gilmore built it, I think. There was an Ernest Gilmore. There were two Ernest Gilmores in Attleboro. There was one that was my uncle's uncle, and he lived down on South Main Street, and it's an old Victorian house. It's after Thatcher Street. It's the second house on the right-hand side, and I think it might have been given to my uncle by his family. I don't think he had any children. But anyway, I did go online, and I did find Charles A. Gilmore from Rentham, and William was born in Rentham. I did find that on Ancestry.com. And so they must be related somehow. And so...
Have you looked for that name in any of the city directories? In the local history room?
Yeah, like the Pope directories or anything like that. We have some here.
I
So-
haven't.
The library has them all.
Yeah,
right.
I think,
I
yeah,
found
they have
Ernest,
complete set
J.
of.
Gilmore, if anybody knows J. Gilmore
It's-
more.
Oh, yeah.
His father was Ernie, too. And he was much younger than
Yeah, right.
my uncle's.
Is there a date on that? No.
No.
What was the name of the initials
Is it a
again?
Bible?
C.A. Gilmore.
Okay.
And then it looks like a 1 after it or an L after it.
Mhm.
Do you think it's a Bible? I can't tell.
That's what I think.
It kind of looks that
I
way.
think
Yeah.
maybe it's a Bible, and it looks like it was made to look real worn. Are you getting tired holding it? And there's a pair of glasses here,
Yeah.
and there's an inkwell with a pen here.
Mhm.
And it looks like there's another book here.
Don't touch it. Yeah.
Have you had it cleaned at all? And
No.
that might be a good start.
Yeah.
They
And
sell
where
stuff.
would- Where
they
would you
sell-
go to have it cleaned or looked at to have it repaired?
Probably Preservation Framers in Providence. You can see it from 95. But at Michael's, they sell a professional cleaning. I have cleaned some oil paintings. and you have to take a cotton ball and just get a little bit of this solution on it, and then just do it little tiny, an inch square at a time. You do it across the whole thing, but you have to put some kind of a stiff piece of cardboard in. See how where the frame from the back is coming, showing through?
Yeah.
That L-shaped marking on the canvas? You have to put something there to protect that, so that when you're pushing on it from the front, you don't get that line like that.
Okay.
But you could do it yourself like that if you wanted to.
Any other suggestions?
The art museum, like, did something. The art museum people.
Yeah, yes.
There may be other things in the picture, because the old oil painting that I cleaned, I started cleaning it, and I came to a cow, and I had no idea that it was there. And then I kept going, and I came to a pond, and I did some more, and I got some more trees. It was all practically black, but you could bring it out. But it's very painstaking, it takes forever.
I would suggest, first to check with Min Fawcett at the art museum, and then maybe she can give you some advice as to where to go and how to get it cleaned or whatever, locally, so you could.
Most of the art things online, you have to be members of. But I think if you go up to the library with that name, they've got access to one or two of the artist listings and what their paintings have sold for and all that. That is on the library's database. Most of the ones online, you gotta, join up for $49 a year.
Yes.
It's frustrating. But might check out the artist.
Yeah.
Okay, and, keep the tree around.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sharing.
Nothing
Oh,
on
yes,
that.
see.
There are a few tears in it,
Yes.
and
That's where you get the line.
now can they repair that too, or?
Oh,
Yeah.
Okay.
First, you'll have to find out if it's worth repairing and cleaning.
Right.
Right. Definitely.
Some hands
Yeah, there is.
recommend you.
That'd be wonderful. Yeah.
But you gotta-
And they do very nice stuff because it's very
Very good.